and I voted to keep the 10,000 officers and to continue to hire. And a woman at the table said to me, "Do you realize what you're doing?" I said, "I realize exactly what I'm doing. Public safety is number one. Businesses will not move to Los Angeles if we have a high crime rate. And yes, our crime rate is down lower than it's been since the 1950s. But if you are a victim of that violent crime, you want to make sure those officers are there. But it's not only about the police officers who go around your neighborhoods. It is also about the civilians that provide the services. And recently I stood up and said we should not lay off those civilian employees, because what happens to those civilian employees in LAPD if they're laid off? Police officers will fill those positions, just like police officers have filled the jail positions. So we will have less officers on the street. And so the decision was made to wait 6 months to lay them off. And then they would make a decision. And then recently the council said, "Oh, we're going to lay them off." And then 3 weeks later they said, "Oh, we found $3 million, we're going to keep you." That's not good management from my perspective and about the important priorities for Los Angeles. Public safety is number one, and we have to find the resources and keep those resources there, and my history and my accomplishments have been keeping those dollars. But it is more than that. It is looking at how we're managing, because right now they have banked overtime of more than 800 hours, and the importance of addressing that fiscal issue that may hit us soon when those officers have reached that 800 and we have to pay out that $150 million. I've worked hard to identify that $160 million, that if there was action taken, some of that money could be used to keep those positions and make sure we have a good public safety system. Because I believe very strongly that we cannot have a situation we are not safe in our schools. Because the tragedy that happened 2 weeks ago was something we all felt. And that we spend more money on things instead of dealing with issues that are important to us, which is public safety. It is tragic to me that it is easier to get a gun than it is to get mental health services. We need to change that, and we need to make sure that we have a safe city for our future.
We have a public safety crisis in Los Angeles. There are two aspects to it. I'm going to try and spend a minute on each in my 2 minutes. One, police, two, fire. First of all, regarding the police department. I was a federal prosecutor in Los Angeles. I've worked in law enforcement for a number of years. And many police officers that work the streets listen to my radio show. I was a night radio host. I spent some time recently with the officers in the Southeast Division. They informed me that, in fact, they are spending 2/3 of their time behind the desk, doing what is now largely unnecessary paperwork because of some outdated policies and lack of technology. We don't have to get to a magic number of police officers to be effective with public safety in our community. We have to just be efficient with the way that we police our community through community policing. Let's reverse that so that we have 2/3 in the community doing what officers took the job to do and 1/3 behind the desk. We can do that, and we can do that soon. Secondly, AB 109 is prison realignment, as they call it. It's the early release of prisoners, many of whom have violent records. They're coming back to our communities, largely to Los Angeles. It's a new crisis that are showing stat increases throughout the city. We're going to have to deal with that. We need that additional officer time in the community without paying for additional police officers. By the way, we get that new added time without paying for additional police officers. Now, let's move to fire. We have a fire department response time crisis. You just heard about it this year, ladies and gentlemen, because it was in the election. This is nothing new. Controller Chick did an audit 10 years ago calling out the response time crisis. And my opponents ignored it, inexplicably ignored it, until some concerned citizens put it in the paper. Austin Buettner, who was a first deputy mayor who was in the campaign for a while, went on a ride along with the fire department. He discovered they're using Thomas guides, the fire department, and no GPS. And you wonder why we're having this problem with response times. They had bad data going in, and they knew it, and they allowed it to happen. The first thing we do in solving the fire department crisis is be honest with the information that we're dealing with. The banked overtime in the police department, by the way, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, and it comes due June 30th, 2014.
Thank you. Our final subject.